Picture this, the Vatican, 1503. Behind marble walls glowing in candlelight, the most powerful man on earth locks the doors. 60 courtesans kneel before scarlet-robed cardinals. Gold piles on the tables, relics stolen from holy altars glitter like stars, and the Pope, draped in white, smiles as he whispers, "Now, the true feast begins." What happened next would shatter the Church's soul and stain history forever. Section 1. A Night of Forbidden Fire. Imagine marble corridors shimmering under flickering candlelight, their shadows stretching like accusatory fingers across frescoed ceilings. The year is 1503, and you are crouched behind a towering column of Carrara marble in the Apostolic Palace. The air tastes of incense and something else, sweeter, heavier, like honey spilt upon hot stone. Every beat of your heart feels loud enough to summon the wrath of angels, yet you cannot move. Not now. Not when history itself is about to stain these sacred walls. From beyond the archway, laughter trembles like silver bells, rising and falling in tones too soft for a chapel yet too wild for any court of kings. Velvet hems whisper against the marble floors, mingling with the distant strains of a lute tuned for something far from devotion. You hear a voice, rich, commanding, seductive as sin itself. "Let them in. Tonight, Rome belongs to us." The voice belongs to Valerio de Cantarella, son of Pope Lucianus VI, a name whispered across Christendom with awe and venom in equal measure. Valerio, the golden prince of the Church, whose emerald eyes and soldier's jawline made noble daughters swoon and enemies curse their birth. And tonight, his chambers have become the stage for a spectacle that will make even Rome's darkest taverns blush crimson. You steal a glance through the archway. The apartments glow like a furnace of gold and crimson. Painted gods, Venus and Apollo, gaze down from frescoed vaults, their eternal beauty mocking the mortal debauchery beneath. 60 women stand arranged like a living frieze, their gowns shimmering with threads of silver and sapphire. Courtesans, poets, dancers, the most exquisite Rome could offer. Among them drift bishops and cardinals robed in scarlet, their jeweled fingers caressing goblets of Tuscan wine as if absolution floated at the bottom. And then, like a serpent winding through Eden, he appears. Pope Lucianus himself. His robes, white as innocence betrayed, sweep across the floor. A diamond-studded cross gleams on his breast, though the eyes above it gleam brighter, fevered with desire and something darker. He smiles, a slow, knowing smile, as he ascends the dais at the far end of the chamber. "Lock the doors," Lucianus commands. The bolts fall into place with a sound like chains across eternity. Tonight, the Holy Father will preside over a feast no angel dares watch. Section 2. Whispers in the dark. The doors groan shut, sealing the Vatican apartments from the rest of the Apostolic Palace. Heavy bronze bolts slam into their sockets with the solemnity of a burial. Silence follows, thick and heavy, broken only by the hiss of torches swaying in their sconces. Every soul in the chamber knows what this means. The Holy Father intends no witness beyond these walls, no ear but those he owns by coin or fear. Valerio's voice slices through the hush like a stiletto. "Bring forth the fruits of autumn." Servants glide in, barefoot on the marble, their faces pale with dread disguised as reverence. Silver trays gleam in their trembling hands, heaped high with figs dripping honey, blood-red pomegranates cracked open like sinful hearts, and chestnuts roasted to a gloss that gleams in the candlelight. The scent mingles with spiced wine and sweat, an aroma as intoxicating as any opiate. A ripple of laughter breaks the tension. One of the courtesans, hair like spun gold, lips like pomegranate flesh, steps forward. Her name is Isolde di Ferretti, Rome's most coveted ornament, a woman whose beauty has caused duels to stain noble streets with blood. She kneels before Valerio, holding up a fig between thumb and forefinger. "Will your grace taste Eden's fruit?" Her voice hums like the strings of the lute behind her. Valerio smiles, a slow curl of lips that promises kingdoms and damnation alike. He leans forward, his breath stirring the curls at her temple, and bites the fig from her fingers. Crimson juice runs down his chin like the mockery of holy wine. A cheer erupts from the assembly, a wave of drunken approval that crashes against the frescoed walls. On the dais, Pope Lucianus raises a jeweled goblet. His voice, sonorous and deep, carries like incense over the assembly. To beauty, which rivals heaven, and to pleasure, which defies it! Cardinals roar their assent, lifting their own cups, scarlet sleeves falling back to reveal hands fat with rings, hands that once held the host in trembling devotion. Tonight, they hold only wine and women. A chorus of musicians strikes up a tune, a lilting melody that coils through the chamber like smoke. The courtesans begin to dance, their silks whispering secrets with every sway of hip and curve of arm. Candles gutter in the draught stirred by their movement, casting wild shadows across the painted saints above. Shadows that make those holy faces seem to weep in molten gold. From your hiding place behind the marble column, you feel your breath seize. You know you should flee. Yet something pins you there, a dark gravity stronger than fear, stronger even than faith. And then the Pope speaks again, his voice a blade honed on wicked delight. Let the games commence. The chamber trembles with anticipation. Section 3. The Unholy Theater. A hush sweeps through the chamber, sudden and absolute, as if the very frescoed angels above have commanded silence. Valerio steps into the center of the room, his boots echoing against marble like the heartbeat of some great beast awakening. He lifts his hands, not in prayer, but in command. Strip the tables, he says, voice velvet over steel. The servants obey without hesitation. Golden platters vanish, goblets clatter aside, and the heavy damask cloths are torn away, bearing the polished stone that gleams under the candlelight like frozen water. The tables become empty stages, altars perhaps, but consecrated now to nothing holy. From the far corner, a brazier flares as an attendant stirs its embers. Sparks leap like fireflies, painting the walls with fleeting constellations. And then come the chestnuts, humble fruits of autumn, glistening with oil. They spill from silver bowls onto the floor, scattering across the chamber in 1,000 errant gleams. On your knees, Valerio commands, and the courtesans obey with fluid grace, as though the command were a caress. 60 women descend to the marble, their silks hissing like serpents shed of skin. Their laughter is soft at first, a ripple, a secret, then louder, ringing like distant bells as they begin to crawl through pools of flickering light, gathering chestnuts with the slow deliberation of cats hunting prey. Gasps and chuckles break from the throats of men who, hours ago, whispered prayers in Latin. Scarlet robes billow as bishops lean forward, eyes glittering with the same hunger that flickers in the brazier's flame. One man crosses himself, his lips shaping a prayer even as his gaze roams the naked backs arching before him. You clutch the cold stone at your back, nails scraping marble, as the scene unfolds with the inevitability of a dream from which there is no waking. The Pope himself watches from his throne, a monstrous chair carved with cherubs whose chubby faces twist in the candlelight into mocking grins. His Holiness reclines, one elbow propped on the gilded armrest, his fingers stroking the diamond crucifix that gleams like frozen lightning against his chest. Faster, Lucianus murmurs, his voice barely more than a breath, yet it slices through the laughter like a blade through silk. And make it beautiful. The music swells, a wild, wanton melody, strings shrieking like souls in ecstasy. The courtesans obey, their movements quickening, their laughter brightening, until the gathering of chestnuts becomes a dance of flesh and fire, a spectacle so raw that even Rome, decadent as Babylon reborn, would recoil. And then, a new voice rises from the dais. Let us wager, Valerio declares, his eyes molten emeralds. For what is pleasure without the spice of victory? A murmur surges through the hall like wind through dry leaves. Heads turn. Eyes ignite. Already, coins glint in plump hands. Jewels flash as rings are stripped from fingers and hurled onto the stripped tables now serving as gaming boards. Who among us, Valerio purrs, shall prove the mightiest stallion in this stable of Venus? The answer is laughter, low, hungry, edged with something darker than mirth. The Pope smiles. And the games begin. Section 4. Wagers of Flesh. Gold clinks like distant bells as it spills across the marble tables. Fat rings set with rubies roll to a stop against silver coins stamped with the visages of long-dead emperors. Jewels, emeralds, sapphires, pearls like frozen moons, are thrown down in reckless abandon. The air thickens with the metallic scent of wealth and the musk of sweat as scarlet-robed cardinals lean close, their whispers coiling like smoke. 100 ducats on Cardinal Maudieri, one voice rasps. 200 on the bishop. Another snarls, his jeweled fingers trembling as he casts his stake into the growing pile. The French envoy wagers his signet, see? Gold as his sins. Valerio prowls among them like a lion through his pride, his smile a blade sheathed in velvet. He pauses by the Pope's throne, bowing low, his green eyes flashing with mischief. Your Holiness, will you bless the games? Lucianus raises his chalice, crimson wine lapping the rim like blood on a blade. My blessing is upon all who seek glory tonight, he intones, and laughter ripples through the hall like the hiss of a serpent disturbed in its coils. The musicians strike a fiercer tune. Drums join the lutes, their pounding deep and primal, echoing the pulse that now throbs in every vein. The courtesans rise to their knees, the candlelight licking over limbs slick with wine and sweat. Their laughter is a chorus, wild as backchic hymns. The rules, Valerio declares, leaping onto the table in a scatter of coins. His voice rings against marble and fresco, clear as a trumpet call. Who claims the highest count of pleasures before the candle's gutter earns the prize? A cardinal, bloated, scarlet, and trembling with eagerness, calls out. And the prize? Valerio grins, teeth flashing like a wolf's. A cloak of silk woven in Damascus, and the envy of every man here. Cheers erupt, hoarse, guttural, edged with something near madness. Robes rustle, belts loosen, the sanctity of vows crumbling like stale bread. The Pope watches, his lips curved in a smile that is neither joy nor mercy but something colder, older, the smile of Rome when Caesar ruled and the gods feasted on blood. Then, with a clap of his hands, Valerio signals the start. Begin! The chamber becomes a storm of flesh and laughter, of whispers drowned in moans. Courtesans writhe among cardinals like vines coiling around crimson columns. Gold chains slip from pale throats, rings tumble from fingers to vanish beneath a tide of silk and skin. A crucifix crashes to the floor, its jeweled Christ glittering as it spins across the marble like a fallen star. And through it all, the Pope reclines upon his throne, chalice in hand, eyes hooded with an ecstasy that has nothing to do with heaven. From behind your column, your breath comes ragged, shallow as a thief's prayer. You know you are watching damnation made flesh. Yet you cannot, will not, look away. Section 5. A Pope's Silence. The fever of the hall grows savage. Laughter now rises in jagged bursts, cracking the air like a whip. Candles sputter and flare, their flames bowing to the wild draught stirred by writhing bodies. Perfume and sweat coil together, a miasma sweet enough to choke a saint. Every surface, the stripped tables, the marble floor, the very steps of the dais, has become a stage for sins too numerous to count. And through it all, Pope Lucianus VI does not speak. He reclines in his throne like an emperor of old, a figure carved from ice and ivory, yet beneath that glacial poise burns a hunger as old as man. His fingers drum the gilded armrest in time with the pounding drums, his diamond crucifix glittering with each movement like a mocking star. Once, that hand traced blessings in the air. Tonight, it curls around a goblet as though squeezing the throat of virtue itself. From your vantage behind the column, you see his eyes, those fathomless wells of power. And for one heartbeat you imagine they turn toward you. Do they see? Do they know? A shiver crawls your spine. You shrink deeper into shadow, heart battering your ribs like a desperate bird. Faster! Valerio's voice lashes the hall, wild with command. He strides among the bodies, his green eyes fever bright, his boots splashing through spilled wine like blood. Earn your wagers, my lords! Let no man falter before the night has spent its fire! The courtesans obey like dancers of some infernal rite. Limbs coil, silk tears, jewels scatter like drops of frozen flame. A cardinal shouts as he topples backward into a heap of cushions, laughter bursting from his throat even as another lunges to claim his prize. Coins clatter onto marble, wagers renewed in breathless frenzy. And then, music ceases. A single note shrieks from the lute before snapping into silence. Every head turns. At the dais, the Pope has risen. Gasps shiver through the chamber. A robe of white cascades from his shoulders like fallen moonlight, pooling about his sandaled feet. He lifts one hand, not in blessing, but in something darker, a gesture that stills the hall as utterly as death. Enough, he says. The word falls soft as snow, yet it crashes through the revel like thunder over a battlefield. One by one the courtesans freeze. Cardinals clutch their robes, breath heaving in their throats, faces glistening with sweat and sin. Coins gleam on the marble, mute witnesses to the wagers of flesh. Silence yawns wide, vast enough to swallow every moan, every gasp, every whispered prayer that still clings to the walls. Lucianus surveys the chamber, his eyes cold, fathomless, and smiling. No, he murmurs, voice smooth as spilled honey. The true feast begins. Section 6, the second act. A ripple of unease slithers through the hall. Men who only moments ago roared with laughter now crouch like chastened beasts, their flushed faces glistening in candlelight. Courtesans kneel motionless, hair spilling like rivers of gold and ink across the marble, their jeweled anklets chiming faintly in the hush. The Pope descends the dais, and the chamber bends with him, cardinals stooping low, diplomats bowing so deep their foreheads nearly graze the floor. His sandals make no sound on the stone, yet each step thunders in your chest like a funeral drum. When he halts, the torches flare as if some unseen wind has drawn breath. Valerio! Lucianus murmurs. His son moves forward instantly, a shadow of emerald and black. Have the gifts been prepared? Valerio's grin slices the air. As you commanded, father. He gestures sharply. Two servants emerge from a curtained alcove, each bearing an object draped in crimson silk. They kneel, heads bowed, and pull away the coverings. Gasps shatter the silence. One chest brims with relics, jeweled chalices, fragments of saints' bones bound in gold, a cross encrusted with gems that blaze like captive stars. Sacred treasures looted from altars, stolen from reliquaries kissed by pilgrims for centuries. Their sanctity lies broken on a table now smeared with wine and sweat. The second chest holds garments of unspeakable luxury, tunics stitched in Damascus, slippers lined with ermine, belts studded with pearls so large they seem carved from frozen moons. They glitter like the ransom of a kingdom, yet they reek of something fouler than greed. They smell of bloodless blasphemy. Lucianus spreads his arms, the white silk of his sleeves catching the light like wings, though no angel ever wore a smile so serpentine. You have played like children, he intones, his voice coiling through the hall. Now play like kings. These prizes await those who dare the final trial. A murmur stirs, thick with dread and desire. Cardinals glance at one another, their faces masks of greed barely veiling the fear that crawls beneath. Courtesans exchange glances too, but their eyes are harder, cooler. They have seen the abyss before, and it does not blink. Valerio leaps onto the nearest table, scattering coins with a clang that echoes like steel in a tomb. His voice knifes through the air. The trial is simple: strength, speed, and devotion to pleasure. Who among you shall take the crown of lust from Rome herself? Laughter bursts, shaken, jagged, desperate as a drunkard's prayer. Men surge forward, tugging at their torn finery, casting off what remains of shame. Jewels rain into the chests, doubling the stakes until the heaps of treasure glow like molten suns. From your shadowed corner your breath curdles. You know what comes next, though God help you, you cannot look away. The chamber itself seems to pulse now, alive with heat and hunger, its frescoed saints leering through veils of smoke. The final game begins. Section 7, the final game. The torches burn lower now, their flames bleeding gold across the marble like veins of fire. Shadows sprawl thick and restless, writhing over frescoed ceilings where painted cherubs seem to avert their painted eyes. The heat of so many bodies, the cloying perfume, the wine spilled like blood, It all thickens into a fever that clutches the lungs. Valerio raises a whip of scarlet silk, its tail tipped with silver beads that glint in the dimness. He cracks it once, the sound sharp as a musket shot. "On your knees, my doves!" he calls, and the courtesans obey. 60 bodies fold in unison, their jeweled collars flashing as they bow like pagan idols to an unholy altar. The men surge closer, eyes gleaming with a hunger no prayer could tame. "The law of the game is thus," Valerio declares, voice ringing with mockery and triumph. "Count your conquests, claim your spoils, and let no heart grow faint before the dawn. Those who falter," he lowers the whip until its beads brush the marble with a whisper, "shall pay in flesh." A ripple of laughter answers, sharp-edged and breathless. The Pope watches, lips curved like the crescent moon, his hands clasped upon the diamond crucifix that seems to pulse with each guttering flame. His silence is more terrible than any shout. The music starts again, wild, frantic, like a hunted thing that knows it cannot escape. Drums pound, strings shriek, the very air vibrates with the rhythm of frenzy. Courtesans rise, swirling in silks that slip away like shadows torn from the body. Their laughter peals bright as shattered glass, mingling with the guttural cries of men casting off the last tatters of decency. And then the wagers erupt anew. "A chalice for the Bishop of Siena! The sapphire cross if Montieri takes 5! 10 ducats on the envoy, God rot his soul!" Your stomach knots. The words batter you like hailstones, each syllable a desecration flung into the night. You cling to the column, its cold biting your palms, as the first cries of pleasure shiver through the hall. Limbs knot together, pale and scarlet. Chains of gold writhe against flesh slick with sweat. A crucifix crashes from the wall, its jeweled Christ spinning across the marble like a fallen star. A cardinal kicks it aside with a laugh that stabs your ears. Through the chaos strides Valerio, whip coiling in his fist like a serpent drunk on blood. His eyes blaze, green fires that devour every flicker of shame. And above him, upon his dais, Lucianus drinks deep from his chalice, his gaze hooded, unreadable. Is it triumph that burns there? Or despair so black it wears the mask of joy? The music surges to a crescendo. Candles gutter low. Somewhere beyond these walls, Rome sleeps in her velvet darkness, dreaming of saints and salvation. But here, in this chamber where sin weds sacrilege, dawn will find nothing but ashes. And yet, the Pope is not done. He rises. Section 8, the Last Benediction. The moment Pope Lucianus rises, the frenzy freezes. Courtesans pause mid-laugh, their jeweled ankles gleaming in candlelight. Cardinals clutch silk and flesh like drowning men clutching driftwood, breath rasping in the sudden hush. Even the music dies, strings moaning into silence. Only the torches hiss, their flames bowing low as though in dread. Lucianus steps forward, his white robes sweeping through a tangle of spilled wine and scattered gold. Each footfall sounds like a verdict struck upon stone. He does not speak at first, he only looks, at the courtesans kneeling in their glistening skins, at the princes of the church slumped in exhaustion and shame, at the treasures strewn like entrails of some slain virtue. His lips curve, not in anger, nor sorrow, but something colder, the smile of a man who has stared too long into the pit and learned to love its depth. "Children," he says at last, and the word falls like ash on fire. "You have tasted Rome's soul tonight." His voice coils through the silence, velvet masking iron. "This city bows not to saints but to power. And power, like flesh, is sweetest when consumed." He lifts his hands. For one breathless instant you think he means to bless them. But instead he turns, slow as a tide, and walks back to his throne. The crucifix at his chest glitters, throwing shards of light that seem to mock the frescoed saints above. When he sits, he does not look at them again. "Clear it," Valerio snaps, his voice brittle with spent ecstasy. Servants rush forward like rats from shadow, sweeping coins and relics into chests, gathering silk stamped with sweat, blotting stains that will never truly fade. Courtesans vanish behind curtains, their laughter hushed, replaced by whispers sharp as broken glass. Cardinals stumble toward the door, crimson robes clinging to limbs heavy with wine and sin. Some mutter prayers, their words fouled by the scent of musk still clinging to their lips. You remain frozen behind your column as the chamber empties, your pulse a drumbeat of terror and disbelief. At last, only the Pope remains, Lucianus, seated in silence, eyes lost in the guttering glow. One hand cradles his chalice. The other rests upon the arm of his throne, fingers tracing idle circles in the gold. And then, without lifting his gaze, he speaks, soft, almost tender. Burn the candles. Let no shadow linger. The words chill you to the marrow. For you understand now, this was no revel, no mere corruption. This was a creed. A doctrine written in flesh and fire, carved into marble with laughter and blasphemy. When you finally slip from the hall and flee into the freezing corridors, the echoes follow you, laughter like shattered bells, whispers curling through the dark, the Pope's voice murmuring like a prayer twisted into sin. Rome will wake to bells at dawn. Pilgrims will kneel, incense will rise, and the keys of heaven will gleam upon banners above St. Peter's. But beneath those vaulted skies, in that chamber where the last candles burn to stubs, the feast of shadows will smolder forever, an unholy ember in the heart of Christendom. And you will carry its smoke in your lungs until the day you die.